I'm Lisa Wetzel, an Akashic Records consultant. We ask the Akashic Records the questions, and they provide the answers. And Carrie has the question.
What is the process for the soul to choose its body?
The soul chooses its body by designating the desires that it has in order for its own growth. When the soul requires a human body, or even an animal, or vegetation, to gain the knowledge or the information that it needs in order to become more enlightened, it chooses its path carefully. When we talk about carefully, we talk about it chooses a specific criteria and a specific instance or situation that it wants to be involved with when it moves up, meaning to earth. So when you begin, they're laughing and saying, and it may not be earth, it may be somewhere else. But what you need to gain the understanding of as human beings is that the soul chooses you, and it has a specific message or a specific duty in order to serve the human in its way to gain its own growth and independence. So what we want you to know is that the soul chooses wisely. It chooses all instances and all circumstances that would benefit its own growth. When you begin to wonder why you are who you are and why your situation has become so dire or so successful, you'll begin to recognize that the soul has a hand in this story. And when you begin to see how you have listened to the soul in a magnificent way, you'll begin to see that your life is simple and it's easily understood, meaning it's peaceful and it's satisfactory. So when you begin to gain the understanding that it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from, you simply just serve the soul in a way that is obedient. and when you begin to gain that understanding, all will be well. It doesn't matter if you're a blade of grass or a rabbit or a deer, a horse or a cow. You will begin to understand that all serve the soul well. When you gain the understanding that everything is relevant to the soul, the human body is just as relevant as the universal knowledge. When you understand that the purpose of your soul is for its own growth and how it can become magna cum laude, basically meaning very knowledgeable or the smartest one in the room, you'll begin to gain the understanding that you can trust the direction that it's taking you in. When you begin to see that the soul doesn't specifically put you in harm's way or in a difficult situation so that you will fail, you'll begin to recognize that it will guide you with ease. The soul's purpose in the human body is to gain knowledge and understanding of how the human works so it can manipulate the human in ways that will be beneficial for their growth and understanding. And when we, as the masters of all that is, gain the understanding of what you need as a human being, we put the soul's knowledge into play. And what we're saying to you is that it becomes a game. It becomes a game with the soul to see how it can communicate with the human brain so that the human will follow the instructions. If you begin to recognize that grass just grows, or the vegetation just grows the way that it's supposed to, or an animal follows its instincts, you'll begin to recognize how the soul creates the flow. So when you don't understand why your life is the way that it is, have you manipulated your mind in a way that has created the chaos that is currently relevant to you at this time? This is what we want you to ask yourself. So if you're in a situation where there is pain and sorrow and misunderstanding of what the circumstances are around you, how did your mind play into that scenario? Because when you begin to recognize that the mind creates all heartache, you'll begin to recognize that the soul is constantly battling the mind's control. When you begin to see and understand how allowing the soul to communicate freely and trust and understand what it has to say and what it's doing, you'll begin to recognize that everything flows. It flows with ease. They're saying even though there is always heartache or upheaval in one's life, what we create for you is the easiest path to manipulate or to follow that pattern. And what I'm seeing is a river running, and how the water just knows to go around the rocks, and how it flows in a specific way that they're laughing and saying it's free flowing. And when you begin to gain the understanding what free flowing is, you can live your life in this way and allow things to unfold with grace and ease. There will still be loss because there's changes that have to be had. There is no life that will exist forever. There is always shifting and changing, and the circumstances will always continue to make you grow. But the way that it's handled by the mind and the heart are two different things, and this is what we want you to understand. When you can grasp a better concept of what the heart does and how it controls you, and how the mind can create fear or disharmony, you'll begin to gain the understanding of who you're meant to be. And this is what the soul's control is, and this is why they are placed within the human being in order to create the outcome and the understanding of what all humans need to know as they exist upon this earth. Okay, is that it? Okay, what I want you all to understand is that we as humans, we have our ups and downs and our ins and outs. Things end and they begin. If you really begin to look at these patterns in our life and the way that we handle them, and when we become more upset, or they're saying disharmony in the way that everything flows, you can always recognize that your mind is a part of that. And if you begin to recognize that most of the time the heart's already guiding you to the answer, for example, it may be a relationship that you kept having a feeling that it needed to end, that your heart was telling you that something wasn't quite right, but your mind was telling you, no, you have to stay in this because you'll be alone if you don't. Or what did I do wrong? Why is this relationship ending? Why don't they love me? Or why don't I love them? And you turn it into chaos. Recognize that you probably already knew the answer anyway, but your mind is controlling your fear and the answers that are the outcome. So recognize what those differences are. And when you can begin to control the thoughts in your mind and really sit in harmony with your heart and what it's saying to you, you'll always find peace. And that's the way it rolls. So thank you for joining me. You can follow me on Facebook at Lisa Wetzel, Akashic Records Consultant. Instagram is Akashic Records Lisa Wetzel. And you can also listen to my podcast at Mystical Lodge Radio. Thank you.